Well, good afternoon, everybody. For some folks, good evening. Time change is really a masterful thing, isn't it? I've had my fair share of adjustments trying to figure out what time it is, but I'm with Matt LaMarca today, Brendan Glasheen. This is the Slate. We're a DraftKings show that goes Monday through Friday, and today we are here from 5 until 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 6-ish. We got to hop out because of Madden. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. You can also find us. You have found us at this point if you're watching on Twitter as well, on the Twitter stream. LaMarca, how are you? What's going on?
I'm doing very well. Just seeing you outdoors, for some reason makes me happy. It makes me feel like spring is here. I'm ready for opening day. I'm ready for the Masters. Uh,
Yeah,
it's a good time of year to be a sports fan.
it sure is. A lot of basketball going on, college, pro. We'll get into the NBA today. Also, some baseball futures as spring training is well underway now at this point. There's always something going on in the NFL. It's actually been a slower day compared to other days this month in the National Football League. But pretty much, if you've got thoughts on anything, folks, DFS or sports betting, looking towards the future in the NFL or baseball, or you want to talk about tonight's NBA slate, we're going to spend a lot of time on that, the NBA. Matt LaMarca, he's got a write-up right now over on dknation.draftkings.com. It is the draft playbook where he notes really, really detailed things that you do need to consider when you make an NBA lineup or place an NBA bet. Scheduling notes, injuries to monitor, game environments. When you want to go to DFS, it's always a good idea to look at the totals in those games. If it's a high total, generally speaking, that means there's some value in the game when you make a lineup in daily fantasy. There's a lot of crossover, as we like to say in the biz. There's crossover in daily fantasy and sports betting when it comes to the NBA. You look at this slate, 7 games, so it's very doable to process. It's not one of those double-digit slates. What jumps out to you, LaMarca, today?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of really interesting games. Mavericks Timberwolves is one that stands out to me. You've got the Mavericks, who have been the slowest team in basketball this season, dead last in pace. And then you've got the Timberwolves, who have been playing at the fastest pace in the league by a significant amount recently. So it's kind of a clash of styles. Who will win out? The Timberwolves have been playing great basketball recently. Part of that is because they have cranked the pace up. So it'll be interesting to see what Dallas does in that environment. Certainly, I think from a fantasy perspective, it makes Luka Doncic even more valuable than he normally is, right? If he's able to provide us value in games where the Mavericks are really grinding it out, if you put him in a more up-tempo environment, I think it's only going to do good things for his fantasy stock.
Sure. And Luka did not play the other night against Houston. That was a blowout win for the Mavs. That was at home. So which I was concerned for that particular game, what it would look like without Luka. He's been that good. So it's really a compliment to him when he's out of the lineup. In Minnesota, coming off a loss to the Suns, where they did have a 15-point lead in that game. So it's a game that has a high total at 228. It is the highest total, second highest total, third highest total on the slate. You have Spurs Pelicans at 232.5. Pardon me, that is a game tomorrow. That is a tomorrow game. Pardon me. So then you have, Houston and Portland at 234, which makes a lot of sense. That could just be a competition for draft capital or draft positioning. So do you envision this to be a game that you should consider stacking of the 7 games tonight?
Yeah, I think you've got 2 teams, the Rockets and the Trailblazers. They're literally the 2 worst teams in the league in terms of defensive efficiency this season. The Rockets have also played at one of the fastest paces in the league. So, that kind of environment suggests high scoring. And then you just look at these 2 rosters, and there's just not a lot of high-priced talent at the moment, particularly on the Trailblazer side. There's tons of potential value there with, Chris Dunn is somebody that I really like tonight, but there's guys at basically every position that seem underpriced. So you put them in this game environment, and I think Portland in particular looks like a team that you're going to need to have some exposure to.
Okay, very good. And look at all of these outs on the contest. Lillard, Nurkic, Hart. Lillard's out for the rest of the year. Hart, uh, Anthony Simons, excuse me. No John Wall, of course. Winslow, Little. A lot of guys out tonight. And yeah, it feels like with Chris Dunn, they've yet to catch up on the value of him, right? So he was in the 3K range. Now he's up at 4,500. 22 fantasy points a game. He did that last time out against the Spurs. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, kind of involves himself in a variety of ways, but the salary just keeps going up. So it feels like at some point with these Portland fringe rotation guys, but now becoming rotation guys because of their injuries, that will eventually catch up, I suppose.
Yeah, the one thing that's interesting to me about Dunn is that he started their last game. It had been Brandon Williams, who was operating as the team's starting point guard, Dunn coming off of the bench. So those two roles have kind of flipped. It'll be interesting to see if that stays the same way tonight. I would bet that it does. But you see Dunn 25 minutes, but it was a 37-point loss for the Blazers. And they've played in a ton of blowout losses recently, so you can't necessarily expect that this game is going to be closer, but Houston's only favored by 4. I would imagine that if this game is more competitive, Dunn sees a few extra minutes as long as he sticks in the starting lineup. So if we push him up to about 30 minutes tonight, he's averaged just under a fantasy point per minute since signing on with the Blazers. I still think 4,500 is a very good number for him.
Very good. So another game tonight that I think is, and you wrote this up in your article, as far as injuries to monitor, 2 stars in the Knicks Miami game with Jimmy Butler and Julius Randle. And Miami is home. And look, Miami, they're in the news because of what the heck happened the other night with the flare-up between Udonis Haslem, Jimmy Butler, Eric Spoelstra. It was really Spoelstra and Haslem versus Butler, which I'm starting to wonder with the Miami Heat and we can maybe even do a little futures discussion here, but it's more so not so much about the Heat because I believe in their culture, what Pat Riley has built, expectations. They did go to a finals just a couple years ago in the bubble, but I start to wonder about Jimmy Butler. I'm like, well, you're in Chicago, you got yourself out of there, then you went to Minnesota and people didn't like you there, and then you go to Philadelphia and you were also mean there. Is it starting to catch up? The guy loves coffee, but doesn't seem to like people. He wants to win.
He's probably overlooked on the head case scale, right? He's one of those guys that seems to fit in, well in an organization in the beginning. And then the more you're around him and the more he is ingrained in your organization, the more friction seems to arise, with the exception of the Timberwolves, where things just blew up right at the beginning. So right. I think that, when it comes to like the Heat culture, the 2 guys outside of Pat Riley who are the Heat culture are Eric Spoelstra and Udonis Haslem. So if there are 2 guys in Miami that you should not be messing with, it's those 2 guys.
Yeah, agreed. So as far as tonight's game, I would like to think that Butler is going to play, or at least, maybe he doesn't play and that's like it's not an injury. It's like a suspension thing. I don't really know. He is 8,100, third most expensive of the matchup, with Randall at 9,400, Barrett at 8,400. RJ Barrett low-key is playing really, really well from a fantasy standpoint. He's been racking up the points lately for the New York Knicks. But like Miami, never mind Butler. I mean, as you can put 2 and 2 together, he has a flare up. The team hasn't been playing well their last 7-8 games. They've started to fall back a bit. Now they're still the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, but it's getting tighter. And that was kind of expected when you consider all of these teams: Philly, Boston, Milwaukee. Sorry, there's a bug and I'm watching it. But all these teams are playing so well that at some point Miami was probably going to be caught because of these other teams have been so good. But there's got to be some urgency here, right? With Miami probably could win the game. They could win the game without Butler, but don't you want to get him out there and kind of like, fix this whole mess and make sure, hey, okay, everything's fine. We had a bounce back game kind of thing.
Yeah. I do think that like spats like that are typically not that big of a deal. I'm sure teams fight all the time in the locker room. We just happen to see that one, right? It happened in front of everybody. So, like you said, the Heat really kind of this race for the top spot in the East is going to be very exciting over the final couple weeks here. You've got 4 teams that are within a game and a half of each other in the standings, with Miami, the Bucks, the Celtics, and the 76ers. And the Heat are a team that, if they want to win the title, I think need home court throughout. They have historically been an excellent home team, and they're pretty mediocre on the road. So I do think it's an important game for them. They have a ton of names on the injury report today. Jimmy Butler is questionable. Tyler Hero questionable. You've also got, some role players like Duncan Robinson, PJ Tucker, Caleb Martin questionable, and then Victor Oladipo is out. So, yeah, a lot of stuff going on in Miami. Luckily, they get a home matchup against the Knicks, who have, I think, pretty much packed it in at this point. They're 5 games out of the play-in tournament. I think that, they're kind of just going to see what the young guys have here down the stretch. That means, in my opinion, probably no Julius Randle tonight. We'll see another healthy dose of Obi Toppin. Continue to see what RJ Barrett can do as the top scoring threat. So, I would anticipate the Heat guys, for the most part, being available, and the Knicks guys probably exercising some caution.
So New York just came off a win. They beat the Hornets on the second night of a back-to-back on the road, which that's just like a game where you're like, how did the Knicks win? Like, that's just no one put 2 and 2 together. They also put a 10-point lead against Atlanta on Tuesday night, and they still found a way to lose the game by 6, and the Hawks covered. So that was fascinating. Is the number too big, though? Miami's an 8.5-point favorite.
Nah, I think it's about right.
Okay.
I mean, Butler's a big deal here. If Butler sits, then 8.5 is probably too steep. But again, I'm kind of operating under the assumption that I think he plays. He has been in and out of the lineup for what it's worth. He's only suited up in 6 of their last 10 games. So there's a chance he sits, definitely. But again, I think if it's close, these Heat guys want to be in the lineup because they know that they have some work to do here down the stretch.
26-10 at home this year. That is the best record at home next to the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference. The Miami Heat only 1 game ahead of the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference standings. Just because I brought it up, the futures element of this, I mean, now Miami and Boston have the same odds to win the NBA championship. That's very telling. And the Bucks are at plus 650, Nets plus 450. The news of Kyrie Irving, he will make his home debut. Reportedly, he'll make his home debut on Sunday. And then you got the Sixers just a notch ahead of Miami and Boston at 10-1. With this Miami slide, Boston's ascension, where are you at right now with the East and East teams that could challenge Phoenix or Golden State in the finals?
Yeah, I think the Bucks are still my favorite of the Eastern Conference squads. They're not going to impress you all that much if you look at their metrics, but I think it's only natural after you win the title to have a little bit of a hangover the following season. And the one thing about the Bucks is that they have managed to, finish or, get to second place in the Eastern Conference at the moment, and they have not put that much of a tax on their biggest stars. Drew Holiday leads the team at about 33 minutes a game. Giannis and Middleton are about 32 and a half. All of those guys have had games where they have rested. Unlike you look at these other teams, Kevin Durant's playing like 38 minutes a night for the Nets. Joel Embiid, James Harden, Jason Tatum. These guys are all carrying huge workloads at the minute. So when you get to the playoffs, I think that the Bucks have an extra gear that they can give that these other teams are already kind of using.
Okay. Bucks are plus 650, third favorite to win the NBA championship right now in the DK Sportsbook. And to win the conference, they are right behind the Nets at plus 300 to win the conference. Nets are at plus 250. Nets is a play-in team, plus 250.
Yeah, we all know that the Nets are really good, though.
Say it again.
We all know that the Nets are probably the most talented team on paper. I mean, it was only 1 year ago that Kevin Durant almost dragged this team past the Bucks with nobody, with no help, with James Harden playing on one leg. Who knows what Ben Simmons is the real wild card. I don't know if he's going to play this year.
I don't think he
Even
is,
if
though,
he
LaMarco.
doesn't, though, him and Durant and Kyrie is an upgrade over what this team had last year.
It sounds like the way Nash has spoke, and the Ben Simmons timeline of events is really, there's plenty of guys in the NBA that have long timelines. Kyrie, Durant, even Zion Williamson, that guys are hurt. But with Ben Simmons, if there's a herniated disc situation, I wouldn't bank on having him help you at all. Now, look, maybe as I say that, maybe off the bench he can give you something defensively, but I wouldn't count on him being part of their offense and in system. I think Steve Nash has already had a hard enough time, and I'm not knocking on him. He's a newer head coach in the league. He's never done this before, and he's got to manage the personalities of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Like, I think Ben Simmons, if he gives you anything, is 10 minutes off the bench in a playoff game. That's maybe the max of what you're getting here.
Yeah, you're right. It's going to be tough to integrate him into the offense because, you know, on one hand, you look at him and you're like, man, they could use this guy the same way that the Bucks used PJ Tucker last year, right? Just make him a defensive stopper. Yep. But PJ Tucker at least provides something offensively. He can knock down the corner three if you leave him wide open. And Ben Simmons hasn't proven that yet. So I'm with you. I don't know if Steve Nash, even if he is healthy, I don't know if he's going to feel comfortable trusting him in a playoff game if they don't get anything from him down the stretch of the regular season.
Yep. Yeah, the trade to me feels more like, all right, let's dump Harden and let's get a look at what we're going to be with just Kyrie and Durant. And of course I say that Kyrie Irving, the news the other day now really gives them some flexibility as to how they'll use him the rest of the season and in a playoff series. But it feels to me with Ben Simmons, you need a full off season to integrate this guy, because on top of that, we can wrap here, but just Kyrie Irving needs the ball in his hands. Ben Simmons does too, to be as effective as possible on offense. And that, just to try to pull that off, now that you got Kyrie for every game now, the rest of the season, just focus on what you have. And you've got plenty of shooting with Curry. We'll see if they get Harris back. Patty Mills, they're a problem. And Drummond has been a cleanup monster on the glass. He'll be a factor for sure. What else? Let's go back to the slate for tonight. 7-game slate. Just reading through. So again, we're going to monitor injuries. Randall and Butler, of course. Karl Anthony Towns against Luka and those Mavericks. Let's pick a number here, or pick a spread, because I've yet to ask you. You like these Atlanta Hawks, who I just mentioned, rallied the other night, down 10 in the fourth quarter to beat the Knicks and cover. Trae Young was awesome at MSG. You like them covering just under a 3-point field goal against the Warriors at home.
Yeah, I mean, Trae Young put on an absolute show, and the Hawks have quietly been playing some really good basketball of late. They are 20-11 over their past 31 games. They have a net rating of greater than plus 3 points per 100 possessions. And more importantly, this is just not the Warriors team that we have become accustomed to this year. Steph Curry is still one of the most important players in the league. Their net rating decreases by 14.4 points per 100 possessions with Curry off the floor. That's basically the third highest mark in the league, trailing only Jokic and Jason Tatum. So with no Steph Curry, it's really tough to see this Warriors team going on the road and beating an Atlanta team that has been playing well. I know that the Warriors were able to have that comeback win in their last outing, but they scored 90 points against the Magic 2 games ago. They dropped the game to the Spurs without Steph Curry. So I think this team is vulnerable, and I will take Atlanta as a small home favorite here.
Atlanta, that's a good win. So, of course, they beat the Knicks, and then they beat the Pistons, which the Pistons have played great since the break, against the number, at least, against the spread. They've been awesome. They're 15-1, I think, in their last 16 against the spread, something insane like that.
Pistons are playing themselves. They need to tank.
Yeah, well, right. I thought that too at the All-Star break when they beat the Celtics right before the break. I'm like, okay, that's enough. Pistons are going to come out of the break and they're going to start losing games, and that has not happened. They are actually
really
winning.
Fascinating race at the bottom of the, we talked about the top of the East being fascinating. You've got the Rockets, Thunder, Pistons, and Magic all with between 18 and 21 wins. And only the top 3 teams get the most chances at the ping pong balls. So it's really a race for the bottom right now. And the Thunder had lost 10 straight. They did win their last game. So it wouldn't be surprising if they eventually moved past the Pistons, who have, as you mentioned, been playing good basketball recently. Pistons, if they got the number 1 pick for the second year, I think that would absolutely make them a very interesting team. So I'm all for the Pistons right now. I want them to lose, and I want them to get the number 1 pick again. I think that would be a very fun situation.
Yeah, they could contend. Maybe there's a path with the Pistons to be like the next Cavs. You just get enough young players and you're in the same division as Cleveland. So who's to say you can't challenge? I mean, look, I know Milwaukee is also there in that division as well, but yeah, would make things interesting. Cade Cunningham is coming into his own here in the second half of the season. There's no doubt about it. So you like the Atlanta Hawks to cover, and the Golden State Warriors are in the midst of an East Coast trip. As you said, they beat Miami. They did lose to Orlando straight up the other night. So, yeah. But you do like Klay Thompson in this game to serve on the boards and as a facilitator. 6.5 rebounds, assists is his assist prop, and it's got plus money.
Yeah, all about that at plus money. I'm not sure if the odds have moved on that. I haven't checked them, but earlier today, at least, it was over 6.5 combined rebounds and assists at plus 115. Thompson has increased his rebound rate and his assist rate with Curry off the court this season. No real surprise there. He's also playing a few more minutes of late. And while Thompson's not a great assist, distributor or rebounder, 6.5 is a very reasonable number for him. He's averaging 6.5 combined for the season at the moment. And that's been playing, reduced minutes for most of the year and sharing the court with Steph Curry. So I think getting the over on 6.5 is very, very doable for him in this matchup, even though I expect the Hawks to win.
3 assists last game, and yes, the number is still plus 115 over on the DK Sportsbook. So that has not changed. 6.5 rebounds plus assists. Klay Thompson. LaMarca likes the over. Moving into DFS to kind of take us home here on the NBA front, we'll work in some baseball futures. So off the top of the show, let's just rehash this. You're into Luka tonight as a stud in this game. Just as a follow-up question to that, as a stud for the contest, I should say, 7-game slate. If Karl Anthony Towns doesn't play, does that make you second guess at all because maybe Dallas blows him out because Cat's not in the lineup? How are you processing the Cat news while at the same time looking at Luka as an anchor?
Yeah, I don't think it has any effect on my my interest in Luka. Right, the Mavericks are roughly 3.5-point dogs at the moment. If Towns gets ruled out, they might become like small road favorites, but it's not enough where you have to consider the blowout factor or anything like that. So the Towns news is more just important as to how I'm going to be prioritizing the Timberwolves, right? If Towns is out, that's going to open up some significant value with their roster. Anthony Edwards gets the biggest usage bump in that situation. You could also see guys like Jared Vanderbilt, Naz Reid get a few extra minutes. So I think that's really the more important factor with Towns.
Okay, and you mentioned you like Chris Dunn. Any other value picks you'd like to give out for the slate tonight?
Yeah, I mean, Portland is chock full of value, but I'll throw another team at you. I'm going to go with Patrick Beverley at 4,700. I think that's a really good price tag for him. He's played around 31 minutes in his past 2 games. He's averaging 1.12 DraftKings points per minute over the past month. So too cheap for him there. Kevin Porter Jr., he's $6K on the Rockets. Like that price tag for him. Not really a value, but I think Rudy Gobert, it's an excellent night for him. Target him as a bounce back. He's at 7,600, coming off of 3 straight subpar games, but now he gets a great matchup versus the Hornets. He's cheaper than usual. I think this is a great spot to buy low on the Stifle Tower.
I love it. Yeah, Utah got embarrassed by the Celtics the other night. They didn't play a lot of minutes. These star players, they're key guys. And plus, like the Hornets want to push the pace, so there's going to be a lot of rebounding opportunities in that kind of game. So makes sense. And Gobert getting him sub 8K, you love to see that. So once again, you want to check out Lamarcus' article over on the DK Playbook, breaking down tonight's NBA slate. He likes Klay Thompson to hit over 6.5 rebounds plus assists. He likes the Atlanta Hawks to cover 2.5 at home against Golden State. And Luka, Chris Dunn are 2 plays to keep an eye out for in the DFS side. A lot of value in Portland, but could be chalky. Also look at some other guys, mid-tier price tags like a Rudy Gobert at 7,600. Hey, baseball is near. Baseball is coming. You're a baseball guy, Lamarca.
You know it.
How much spring training do you like consume, if at all? You don't really care.
I'll consume my team. You know, it's no secret that I'm a big Mets fan, so I will read a lot of the Mets stuff. You know, who's competing for the final couple jobs in the bullpen, stuff like that. But as far as the national news goes for spring training, I think it's similar to preseason football. You just don't want people to get hurt, right? I don't know if there's a ton to take away. A lot of the pitchers that are throwing are experimenting with, you know, new pitches and stuff like that. So their results are going to suffer. You know, the batters are getting at bats against pitchers who won't be on the roster at this time, you know, in April. So I don't think that there is like a huge takeaway one way or the other if a player is struggling or a player is doing well. Certainly you want to see them do well, right? But I don't think it's something where it's going to impact what I think about players or teams one way or the other.
Who do you like futures wise? Is there a future that you're eyeing? World Series, a prop, an award? We like.
I continue to say that the Rays are undervalued for the 90th straight year. It feels like, you know, they have to navigate a tough division, but the division was pretty tough last year, and that didn't stop them. They have, you know, so much young talent. Their prospects, their farm system is one of the best in the baseball. They obviously just brought up Wander Franco last year, who's already a bona fide stud. And one thing that's interesting with the Rays that hasn't always been a thing is they were active in free agency this offseason. They were exploring, they didn't end up getting, but they made offers to Freddie Freeman. You know, they were kicking the tires at least on some of these high priced players. So I think they realized that it's their time to make a move. I wouldn't be shocked if they brought in a big name before the trade deadline. And again, this team is just undervalued every year. They have 900 different guys that throw 100 miles an hour. They're throwing from funky arm angles, and it's just a really good organization that I have faith in. So I think that, once again, they're underpriced.
Very good. Tampa Bay Rays are there now. Why are the Red Sox? I'm going to sound like Kaufman here for a minute. Why are the Red Sox only 2,200?
No, the Red Sox have major pitching concerns. You know, major pitching concerns. Their offense obviously looks very good on paper. You add Trevor Story to Rafi Devers and Xander Bogaerts, but you know, outside of, you know, Chris Sale, who is a major health question mark,
he's hurt already.
Yeah, you lost Eduardo Rodriguez, who was one of your. Yeah, so I think that the reason the Red Sox are plus 2,200 is combination of tough division and questionable pitching.
Fair enough. How do you feel about your Mets being the 4th favorite to win it all? Does that make you feel uncomfortable?
A little bit. Yeah, they were similarly priced last year, and we all saw how that worked out. The big difference for me is that this team this year, I feel like has very strong depth. They've got probably 8 guys who could be starting pitchers on a lot of teams. I think having the DH in the National League, the Mets are one of the teams that benefit the most. They have kind of a ready-made spot now for guys like Robbie Cano or Dom Smith or Pete Alonso, something like that. The question with the Mets is, can Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer stay healthy? If those two guys can combine for 50 starts and they're ready for the postseason, nobody is going to want to face the Mets when that time comes. I think that they are being a little bit priced aggressively right now, plus 1,000. They're in the same ballpark as the Braves, who were the division champs last year and now get Ronald Acuna back. I don't know how good I feel about that, but again, another thing to keep in mind is Steve Cohen wants to win really badly. If this team needs to make a move at the trade deadline and it puts them into, the big time luxury tax, I think he is fully prepared to do that. So it's weird that the Mets are now considered one of the biggest spending teams after, they've been penny pinchers pretty much my whole life. But yeah, I'm excited. I can't help it. I think this is going to be a good year for Mets fans.
They have plus 1,000. They're at 10-1 to win the World Series. Their win total prop is at 90.5, which, man, that's feels high. But if look, health is a huge part of it, right? If their starting pitchers are healthy, those guys can carry them. And I know starting pitching is not quite the same as it was 10 years ago. Okay, these guys are throwing 5-6 innings. They're not going through the lineup a third time. They'll be managed. I get it. But even so, you get 6-7 maybe out of deGrom and Scherzer, two of the very best. It's possible.
It's possible. Can I give you my favorite futures bet? It involves the wins.
Please.
I'm going under 92.5 for the Toronto Blue Jays. Okay. I know that the Blue Jays are a team that everybody expects a huge leap from this year. They made some moves in the offseason, right? They brought in Kevin Gossman. They just traded for Matt Chapman. So I get the reason for the excitement, but realistically, can those two guys perform better than Robbie Ray and Marcus Semien did for this team last year? It feels like there's no way that can possibly happen. So I think that this team, again, the pitching is a major, major question mark. If they get some development from some of their young guys, maybe they can take a step forward. But I don't feel great about them in, a division that top to bottom, with the exception of the Orioles, is going to be pretty good.
Yeah. I wonder now, in the American League East specifically, I wonder what the number as far as win total is going to be needed to even win the division. It could be like 93 wins, right? Could be that close. They could all just beat up on each other.
Yeah. Yes. It's, again, I think that the Rays are the best team in that division. Part of that is just me having blind faith in the organization, the same way that I did for the better part of 2 decades with the San Antonio Spurs. At a certain point, you have to just trust that these guys know what they're doing. And I think that Wander Franco is the best player that has ever worn that jersey, right? I mean, maybe if you want to go really old school, you can say Wade Boggs was technically a Ray, but, Wander Franco is going to be better than Evan Longoria. He's going to be better than Carl Crawford or, BJ Upton, whoever you think the Rays' best player is. Wander Franco kind of already is that at 21. So, I believe in them. The Yankees, that the Yankees are always going to be hanging around. The Red Sox should be improved. It's a really tough division. So, yeah, I think 93 to 95 wins might get the job done.
Yep. So one last thing I want to ask, and it's about the Dodgers, because they go out and get Freddie Freeman. They're always in the mix. They're the favorite like every year, and they should be, right? Because their rotation is stacked. Their lineup is stacked. If I wanted to bet the Dodgers as a general baseball fan, you go, oh, they're the favorite. They're a plus 500. Do you have to get them now? Because I wonder, When are you going to get a better number on the Dodgers? What are the chances the Dodgers have a bad stretch? They're too good. They're too good.
Yeah.
Maybe
Last year, the Dodgers.
Unless you think the Giants are going to be any good again this year, and the Giants can push them around a little bit. Maybe the Padres and the division's tight, and that's why you can maybe wait. But I don't see how you can wait.
I agree with you. I think this is about as good of a price as you'll get. I mean, again, the Giants won 107 games last year, and the Dodgers still finished with 106 wins. So unless you think that the Giants can do that again, and I certainly don't.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers have the potential to do something special, right? I mean, the big question is, do they have enough starting pitching? There's questions with Trevor Bauer, but they still have Kershaw. They have Julio Urias, who I think is one of the like a major leap candidate. I think he could have a humongous season for them. You've got Walker Buehler. So yes, the answer is they have probably enough pitching, and their lineup is just absolutely disgusting. Probably the best lineup that I've ever seen assembled. And I said that last year about the Dodgers. They're better than they were last year. So,
right.
Yeah, baseball is a volatile sport. The best team doesn't always win. We've felt this way kind of about the Dodgers for the better part of half a decade now, and they have one World Series ring to their name. So it's far from a foregone conclusion that the Dodgers will win the World Series, but I think that they are the favorites. And if anything, they're probably a little bit underpriced right now.
Why can't I not find Clayton Kershaw's name in Cy Young or strikeout discussion?
Because he's past his prime. I don't think he's gonna.
Think so?
Yeah, he really wasn't that type of pitcher. Certainly not from a strikeout perspective. He's not one of these guys that is striking out 14 guys per 9 innings like a Shane Bieber or a Jacob deGrom. And his ERA dipped to, I want to say the 3 range last year, 3.5, something like that. So he's now 34 going on 35. I think you pencil him in as a number 3 starter on a really good team. And that's his best use. Right. And I think that's why he went back. If he had gone to the Rangers, like was kind of being rumored, that would have been a lot of pressure on him to be their ace. He doesn't really need to do that for the Dodgers anymore.
We'll have plenty of more future discussion on Major League Baseball opening day, not until April 7th, with the agreement on the collective bargaining agreement being delayed. Regular season does not start now till the second week, still technically the first week of April, second week of April. So plenty of time to dissect things in Major League Baseball as we figure out rotations and guys that are going to make the roster. And that's really it matters for all teams when you want to consider futures and look at awards and all of those fun things that you can find over on the DraftKings Sportsbook. 7-game slate in the NBA tonight. Want to remind you once again to check out Matt LaMarca's article over on the DK Playbook. He has a write-up for tonight. Spots, injuries, stud value play on the DFS side, and also a side he is on, a player prop he is on tonight from a sportsbook perspective. Thanks to Eamon and Andrew behind the scenes. LaMarca, you have a great weekend. Good to talk to you today. And
you too, buddy. Always a pleasure. Thanks for stopping by from the great state of Texas.
Yes, Texas, baby. I'm going to have some barbecue and wrap up my week on that kind of thing. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you next Monday. We have the Sweat at 11 and then the Slate 5 to 6 Eastern time. We'll see you then.